Suffering is something we all experience in life. It comes in many forms: loss, illness, disappointment, loneliness. When hardship arrives, our first reaction is often to resist it. We ask, "Why me?" or "How can I escape this pain?" But in Buddhism, suffering is not something to run away from. It is something to understand. The Buddha taught that suffering is a natural part of life. No one can avoid it completely. Yet he also taught that suffering has a purpose. It is not meaningless pain. It is a teacher. When we stop resisting suffering and start observing it, we can begin to see what it reveals about ourselves. It shows us our attachments, our expectations, and our fears. It exposes what we cling to and what we are afraid to lose. Imagine a tree standing in a storm. The strong wind bends its branches, shakes its leaves, and threatens to break it. A weak tree may fall, but a tree with deep roots stands firm. The storm does not destroy it. Instead, it helps the tree grow stronger. In the same way, when we face difficulties, we have a choice. We can resist and break, or we can stand firm and learn from the experience. This does not mean suffering is easy or pleasant. It is painful. But when we understand that suffering is part of our spiritual journey, we stop seeing it as an enemy. We begin to ask different questions, not, "How do I escape this?" but "What can I learn from this?" Growth does not come from comfort. A seed must break open before it can sprout. A butterfly must struggle before it can fly. And we too must go through challenges to grow. Suffering is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that we are alive, learning, and evolving. So the next time you face hardship, take a moment. Breathe. Instead of pushing the pain away, allow yourself to sit with it. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? When you do this, suffering transforms. It no longer controls you. Instead, it becomes the path that leads you forward. When we stop resisting suffering and start observing it, something changes. We begin to see that hardship is not just an obstacle. It is an opportunity. But how do we turn pain into strength? How do we transform adversity into something that helps us grow? The first step is to change how we see suffering. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we can ask, "What can I learn from this?" Our perspective shapes our experience. If we see suffering as meaningless, it will only bring frustration. But if we see it as a lesson, it becomes valuable. Think of fire. Fire can destroy, but it can also purify. Gold is refined by fire. It is melted down. Its impurities are burned away, and what remains is something stronger and purer. In the same way, adversity tests us, but it also reveals our inner strength. Without challenges, we would never know the depth of our resilience. Another way to transform suffering is to shift our focus. When we are in pain, our world becomes small. We think only of our suffering. But when we look beyond ourselves, we see that others struggle too. We are not alone. Hardship connects us to others in a deep way. When we understand our own suffering, we become more understanding of others. Many great teachers, saints, and sages have faced incredible difficulties. They did not become wise because life was easy for them. They became wise because they faced hardship with an open heart. They learned to bend like bamboo in the wind, not to break, but to adapt. This does not mean we ignore pain. It means we use it. A wound can become a weakness, or it can become a source of strength. The difference is in how we approach it. Instead of closing ourselves off, we can remain open. Instead of holding on to pain, we can let it shape us in a way that makes us wiser and stronger. So when life tests you, do not ask to escape the challenge. Instead, ask to grow through it. In suffering, there is wisdom. In struggle, there is transformation. And in adversity, there is the power to become something greater than before. When we face hardship, we often believe that peace will come after the struggle is over. We think, once this problem is solved, I will finally feel at ease. But life does not work that way. Challenges will always arise. If we wait for a perfect moment to feel peace, we will always be waiting. True peace does not come from escaping suffering. It comes from learning to live with it. The ocean has waves. Some days they are gentle, other days they are strong. But deep beneath the surface, the water remains calm. Our minds can be like this too. On the surface, life brings storms. But within us, we can cultivate a stillness that does not depend on outside conditions. One way to do this is to accept that everything in life is temporary. Joy does not last forever, but neither does suffering. Everything changes. The pain you feel today will not last forever. The difficulties that seem overwhelming now will one day be memories. This understanding helps us stay balanced. When we stop clinging to what we want and resisting what we dislike, we find a quiet strength within. Another way to embrace the journey is to trust in the process. A flower does not bloom overnight. It grows slowly, facing storms, heat, and wind. But it does not rush. It follows its own natural rhythm. In the same way, our growth takes time. Every challenge, every hardship, is shaping us. Even when we do not see immediate results, change is happening. We do not need to fight every difficulty. Sometimes, the best response is to soften, to allow, to flow. Imagine holding a tight fist. The more you grip, the more tension you feel. But when you slowly open your hand, the tension disappears. Life is the same. When we stop struggling against what is, we discover a new kind of strength. Not the strength of resistance, but the strength of acceptance. So, as you walk your path, remember this. Suffering will come and go, but your ability to remain steady through it will grow. Peace is not found in perfect conditions. It is found in a mind that has learned to trust, to accept, and to embrace life as it is. When you understand this, every experience, good or bad, becomes part of your journey, and every step leads you closer to wisdom. If we look back, we can see how every challenge in life has shaped us. Some moments were painful, some were difficult, but none were meaningless. Even if we did not realize it at the time, each experience taught us something. Suffering, when approached with awareness, becomes a great teacher. It shows us our strength, deepens our understanding, and helps us grow. This does not mean that life will ever be free from hardship, but what changes is how we face it. When we stop seeing adversity as something to fear, we become less shaken by it. The storm may still come, but we are no longer swept away. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we begin to see, this too is part of the journey. With this perspective, life feels lighter. There is less struggle, less fear. Even in difficulty, there is a quiet sense of peace. This path is not about becoming perfect. It is not about eliminating suffering completely. It is about learning to walk with wisdom, no matter what life brings. It is about understanding that both joy and sorrow have their place, that both can guide us. When we stop resisting life, we begin to flow with it. And in that flow, we find something truly valuable, a deep, steady peace that does not depend on external conditions. For those of you who have taken the time to listen to these words, I sincerely appreciate it. It is always a joy to share these reflections with you. Your support, whether through a like, a comment, subscribing to the channel, or even a super thanks, means a lot. It allows me to continue sharing these teachings and reaching those who may need to hear them. If any part of this message has resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share your experiences in the comments. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for walking this path together. May your journey be filled with wisdom and peace.